On this episode of Thinking Through, Dr. Allison Lester sits down with Dana Stephenson, co-founder and CEO of Riipen. Riipen connects students with real organizations through project-based experiential learning. Together, they think through what AI means for entry-level jobs, why experience matters more than ever, and how learning by doing helps students build confidence in an uncertain job market.
Well, thank you, Allison, for having me. Super excited to be here. Obviously, this is a topic that I'm incredibly passionate about. So I'm looking forward to diving in with you.
Awesome. This is so cool. Okay, so to launch us in, could you share how you define experiential learning in the context of your work so that we can begin with some shared language?
Yeah, so great question. I mean, experiential learning, there's a whole spectrum of experiential learning, all the way from lower intensity, often lower, perhaps lower duration engagements, all the way up to higher intensity, higher duration engagements. There's no right or wrong answer. Experiential learning is having the opportunity to take what you're learning and apply it in a real world setting and gain real learning experience through that. So we're huge fans here at Riipen of learning by doing. Our form of experiential learning is sort of taking the more intensive internship-like experience, which often co-op or internship is often seen as sort of the holy grail when it comes to experiential learning, and then really breaking that down into smaller projects. We all know that some internships can be better than others, but when you really focus with a challenge that an organization is facing, on a goal or that they're trying to take or an opportunity they're trying to take advantage of, then it becomes very focused on that particular project, and the students have the opportunity to take what they've learned, the skills that they've developed, and really demonstrate it in that project setting with an outcome, often collecting feedback from the employer throughout that process and having to iterate on it and present it back over and over again, being comfortable in the uncertainty and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. And that's all part of the learning process. So all the way, everything from internships, co-op, even apprenticeships, which is more like on-the-job training. And then as lighter touch would be simulations or job shadowing, and lower intensity experiences like that.
Wow. So much of what you're sharing and this overlap of how I support students now in this space. And really, I can hear the intention of these relationships that you're fostering with the companies, with the students, creating spaces of shared risk taking and learning from all parts of the experience that's unfolding. I know that a part of my role as a teacher in higher education is to help students craft a vision of their future self. And it's something that we build together with an imagined role, meaningful job, a place in the world. And it may not be something exact, because I know that the path that they're going to take is going to wind and turn and be unexpected. I even think about my own journey of how I thought that I was going to go into business law, and then I did Teach for America, and then I became a teacher, and then everything took off from there. So I know that there's going to be all these unexpected turns, but it's more like being able to help them see themselves in the future. And it used to be that I could see it, how their future might unfold. They could see it in a way, and there was a sense of direction of becoming. But now it feels harder, like the future feels foggier, for the students, for me too. And between AI and economic instability and shifting job markets, it's like we're preparing students for futures we can't fully see anymore. So I keep wondering, how do we support students in navigating a future that feels uncertain and helping students with uncertainty, which is it's a hard skill to hold in itself. So I'm curious about what you're thinking, what Riipen is doing, just all of that as I'm holding this with my students.
Yeah, it's an incredibly important question, and certainly one of the main reasons why we started this company, going back to 2012 when we were students ourselves. I mean, there were already signs back then of things changing faster and faster, and how were education institutions meant to keep up. And of course, we saw, the work integrated learning, experiential learning experience as being the right way for students to get to engage in these kinds of challenges and really be comfortable with the uncertainty, because that's the reality of what it's like in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
We talk here at Riipen around embracing change. As a company, we're constantly, one of the big themes here is we need to embrace change. We need to build a culture of adaptability, embracing change, being comfortable with the unknown, always questioning things, and being critical of our work, but always striving for continuous learning and continuous improvement. And I think that's what companies are looking for in this new era. I think they're starting to realize themselves that the skills are changing more rapidly and evolving more rapidly than ever before. We can no longer rely on these fixed skills lists because they're already out of date by the time they're published.
Yeah.
And
So true.
that poses some real challenges for higher education, because curricula can start to feel out of date for a student, and for that matter, for employers who are then recruiting those students. They can feel fairly quickly. So I think that's exactly right. I think it's the right question. I think we all need to be thinking about how do we prepare students to be more agile, to build uh, adaptability, to build flexibility, a growth mindset, an entrepreneurial mindset, really being comfortable with the continuous learning and the flexibility. And so I'd love to dive in. I mean, I think experiential learning is one of the best ways to do that, because the reality is when an employer comes in with a project, you don't know where that's going to go.
You really don't. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, and in fact, you can set some parameters around it, in terms of really trying to align it with the business and talent needs of the organization, and trying to align it with the learning objectives of the course. But the real learning is in that messy part, where you think you have an answer and you go and present to the employer, and then they identify and bring more data, or your research unveils more data, or something in the changing landscape changes, and you have to pivot. And so I think one of the best ways that we can really amplify this with experiential learning is really helping students, and faculty members for that matter, really get comfortable with that. That's going to happen. There is no right or wrong answer. You might present some findings and they might get rejected, and that's okay. Be comfortable with the failure. Be comfortable. It's a learning experience, and really push students to think through pivots and think through being very critical of the ideas that are put forth by the organization, and encourage them in many cases to even suggest a completely different idea. Collect feedback, iterate on that. And then of course reflect on it. That's the goal of experiential learning.
Yeah. I want to bring it into an example, because what you named is something that it brought up a memory that I had with a student last semester. And it's one of my courses where students learn action research through an experiential learning model. They identify a problem in their community, they research that problem, they design a solution, and then they implement a prototype solution. And that whatever they have identified is really tied to themselves. Like they are the stakeholder, the care holder in that problem. And one team was working with a local organization to rethink how they engage young volunteers. And in the early weeks, one student said, I don't think they're going to take us seriously. We're just undergrads. And a few weeks later, their proposed redesign was implemented, and it was featured in the nonprofit's newsletter. Super cool. And I could feel this shift happen, this learning shift. And that student who said that particular quote went from being hesitant to fully lit up, leading meetings, offering ideas, following up with partners without being asked, without me asking them to follow up, and listening to what you're saying and holding this. What creates those conditions for transformation? What makes the difference between a task and a turning point, be able to for a student to step into their agency, to trust themselves, to see what they're, not only that they are in undergraduate program and they're learning and they're fostering their learning, but also that they have wisdom to share, or they're going to grow through this experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for all those student listeners out there who might be wrestling with this themselves, and I can say at Riipen here, we've got a network of over 50,000 employers that say differently. And, we actually have completely flipped the script. Rather than students, competing for jobs on Riipen, companies are actually competing to launch their projects and engage with the next generation of leaders and decision makers and change makers. And I think the concept here is that what we always saw was that having the opportunity to actually take what you're learning, hopefully, in many cases in a group setting, so you've got the support of other group and team members, but then being able to actually go and present it and get that feedback and see the response from an organization, it is amazing what it can do to a student's confidence.
Yeah.
Helping them realize that even though it wasn't perfect, I think that's what we hear often from organizations, is that students are in school, they've been trained to find the right answer, but here in a project-based experience, we're open. We don't have the right answer. We're not necessarily going to guide you in that answer. You're acting as a consultant, and when they get that opportunity to do that, all of a sudden it's life-changing for them. The exact career clarity that we might have been hoping, or at least one time we hoped for, which is, I know I want to do exactly this role, but they're understanding that roles evolve, jobs evolve, tasks evolve. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but I have a unique perspective, and I can add a lot of value.
I want to zoom in on something that you're saying, because you're naming this co-learning that the companies have to go, that are doing in a part of this relationship with a student or students. And that, to me, my teacher self was like, that's a hard relationship to hold. I have a co-learning relationship with my students, but I have to consciously be aware of this growth fostering relationship that we're having. And I also have to help students unlearn what they think of as traditional. I can tell you want to jump in.
Well, I think this is exactly right. Yeah. I mean, being super comfortable with unlearning, continuous learning, relearning. Yeah. This is something that the companies are going through. Mm-hmm. We often talk about Riipen because the way that we position these projects to employers, organizations, nonprofit organizations, startups, everyone in between, is that these aren't mission critical projects. These are things that you should be exploring. Okay. And this is a co-learning experience. There's a lot of value that you'll get out of it, but you got to put a lot of value into it. And so we attract primarily a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, micro businesses, nonprofit organizations, startups where this partnering and co-learning alongside students who are digital natives, who are earlier on in their career and thinking outside of the box and haven't done things the same way for 5, 10, 15, 25 years. Really helping push boundaries. In many cases, employers will actually work with multiple student groups, and they're looking for different perspectives. But it's all really about challenging the status quo and trying to do new things. And so I think the reality is that students with that kind of sort of blank canvas, the opportunity to do a lot of research and present ideas. And collect feedback on those ideas, and then iterate, and then represent them back. The students get super excited. But also, it's not just that it increases their motivation, but I think what really happens at the end of this is their ability to actually articulate the skills that they're developing as part of this project in a meaningful way, and the way that they can actually connect that to the real world, how they can imagine themselves presenting that in a real world setting, or to an employer in an interview. That for many students is a huge leg up when they're thinking about their next step.
I would imagine that companies are also wrestling with how to integrate AI into it, because that's like the rise right now. It's like, how do we work that? And so no one's an expert in it, and they're all trying to figure it out together. And it's like, okay, well, maybe we can bring in some students to help us play with AI. How does it work within our company and whatever those projects are?
It's interesting because I think one of the things you said is that you mentioned AI projects. I mean, one at Riipen, sometimes we think that we're sort of like the canary in the coal mine because you'll start as and especially at the small medium business level, you'll start to see, okay, these are the skills that are going to be in high need because these are the projects that are being posted and the way that they're being posted and with the skills that they're being tagged with. So obviously AI is one of the hottest trends on our platform right now because all these organizations are thinking about how to adapt it. But I think one thing that you're getting at is that like any project business or like any business, they're trying to optimize. They're looking for efficiency. They're looking for productivity gains. They're looking to improve margins. I mean, they're looking to take advantage of new markets. These are business driven challenges and problems, and even these nonprofit organizations, obviously there's an impact standpoint, but these are organizations that have to find a sustainability model and have to be able to drive impact, and have a return on the investment of what's being invested across the organization as well. So these are, they're very much focused on productivity. Tying that back to AI for a second, AI today is doing that for a lot of organizations. They're helping increase efficiency, improve optimization. But I think what's really important, and why you hear so often from employers is that we want to identify talent who understand how to learn. We want to identify talent who understand how to adapt, who are resilient, who are flexible, who are critical thinkers, who are problem solvers, who have creativity. It's because those are the durable skills. Those are the human skills. And whether it's AI or another technology, the technology is really meant to amplify humans. But at the end of the day, we need to think of a technology, how it amplifies human skills, but not replace them. And I think that's that is what a lot of the organizations are attracted to, is they're attracted to engaging with these learners at this stage who are learning new things, who are thinking about them differently, and are going to bring a new perspective to their organization. That could be at the leadership level. That's very common. Most of the representatives on Riipen who are participating, who are mentoring the students, are actually the leaders, directors, business owners. So I think that kind of exploration is really important. And that's what Riipen is really used for. That's why it works so well, because in partnership with education and training organizations who are learning new things, and it's really centered around the learning. If an organization is looking for mission critical work, there's other places to go for that. This is, as you pointed out, which thank you for doing that, this is a co-learning ecosystem.
I want to think about you, and maybe it's tied to your Riipen work, but what's keeping you up at night or getting you up out of bed excited? What are you kind of looking at, this emerging tech, looking at the world unfolding?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, crazy question. I'm a new father. I have my 1-year-old's birthday party, first year birthday party tomorrow. So so it's a new perspective for sure.
Yeah.
And thinking about the world that she's growing up in, and how to your point, there's so much uncertainty about that. What will that world look like? What will the roles? What will the skills be needed? What will the roles that she'll be doing? What will the world of work look like? So what keeps me up at night enormously is the challenges that we're seeing in young people preparing for the future of work.
Yeah.
It's obviously why we do the work that we do. And there's no shortage of headlines coming out right now around how AI is taking over many of the entry-level tasks that so many entry-level hires depended on. So I think that's just one of the biggest drivers of why work-based learning, work integrated learning, experiential learning is becoming, it's really having its moment right now, because if then we really have to think about how we create more opportunities for that kind of opportunity to practice and gaining experience early and often throughout
Totally
pathway. The things that I guess that we a lot about is how to really support faculty members. There's so much there's so much going on in this space, and there's so much to navigate. And as you pointed out, it's hard. running these
Yeah.
project-based experiences is a challenge. So, how do we remove as many barriers as possible for faculty members? How do we help them save as much time as possible? How do
Mhm.
we help them, make sense of the complexity, the uncertainty in these project-based experiences, really put them in the driver's seat and align it with the learning objectives and what they're trying to teach as part of their course-based experience, their courses, so that it fits well and they're more likely to want to bring in these. How do we stay flexible as an organization so that
Yeah.
the educators where they are meet the students where they are, their own unique needs, and adapt the way that we offer it for for all different types of courses and educators in this space. We think
Mhm.
a lot about making sure that we set the faculty member up for success so that they can
Mm.
unlock this opportunity for their learners.
The companies that are part of the, or the partner, has to stay flexible in their mindsets and hold that. The faculty member has to hold a flexibility and agility, and so does the student. And how to keep everyone able to adapt. And I think that is harder because I notice even the trend with my students that they're conflict avoidant, really struggling with embracing conflict, seeing, kind of having difficult, hard conversations. I have to stay flexible in that learner mindset, holding empathy for the learner, but then also, holding empathy for myself as I'm learning, and then being flexible in that space to allow for the discomfort around whatever hard skill they're learning, hard emotional skill that's going to help them, like you said earlier, tying back to these are the stable human skills that are going to transcend time
Mhm.
and space, because as the more comfortable you can get adapting to an uncertain world and dealing with uncertainty, you're going to thrive, more likely to thrive, because you can really hold that.
There's no silver bullet, and I don't pretend, in the spirit of continuous learning and continuous improvement, I won't pretend for a second that we have all the answers. We certainly don't. Um,
Yeah.
but there's many little pellets. There's many little things that we can do, and so some things that come to mind are really around expectations but setting. Right from the get-go, really
Mm-hmm.
making sure that you have the right employer with the right expectations. That's why a marketplace like Ripen's works so well, because we can
Mm-hmm.
attract all organizations. But we have thousands of different programs that they can join, and all of these different thousands and thousands of them, they all have different needs. They all have different learners.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's right for this employer might not be right for that employer, but because we're a marketplace, we can help set the right expectations, we can help find the right match. That goes on both sides. That goes on the educator side, who
Mm-hmm.
knows their students' needs, unique needs really quite well. The thing I think, going back a little bit to some of the challenges that we're facing and the that we think a lot about and keep us up at night is that I think one of the challenges is that students have been sort of, often it feels like students, and perhaps for many different reasons, but, one of the reasons that's often highlighted is that they feel like they're kind of waiting for someone to tell them what to do.
Yeah. Oh, completely. Oh, yeah. Like, and I mean, even I was just running these group projects of this experiential thing, I was sharing with you about these projects that are embedded in real experiences. And uh, one of the things that I heard all the time was that I know I would be seeing some group members, weren't as active. And I'm like, hey, what are you working on? And they're like, I'm waiting for the project manager, to tell me what I'm going to be working on. And I'm thinking in my head, I mean, like, I've given you like checklists and things, the project scope, the expectation has been delivered in in so many different ways, in a slide deck, in verbal and written, in the printout in front of you, and all these things, and that looking to this project manager to tell. And I'm thinking, oh my god, like, where did I learn, when did I learn this?
Yeah.
Where take initiative,
Yeah.
just go for it. You see things that need to be cleaned up or do, and and find, your own agency. I don't know how to activate, or what. I just am.
And again, it made this is the thing where we, the world that we live in, is that this is a practiced skill in many ways. And I think, we often hear from some of our partner institutions who have, big goals. They want to make sure that every single student gets at least one experiential learning opportunity before they graduate. And we're like, that's amazing. I'm so glad you got there. But how about at least one per semester?
Yeah.
Why don't we scaffold them from lower intensity to higher intensity, and how do we help them leverage those to land the coveted internship and so on. But just thinking about that, I mean, we've got to we're starting now at Riipen to go into K-12. We always knew we were going to do that, but we knew we had to get
wow, you're shifting into that. Whoa, that's a shift.
It's a big shift. I mean, obviously higher ed is still, we went higher ed, then we went lifelong learning and reskilling, upskilling, and now we're really starting to enter into high school, I should say, primarily. And it's really to get to learners earlier, because this is a practice skill. We've got to practice this early and often. We've got to build confidence from doing it. But I think like some things come to mind that I've seen that are fairly unique. So, one is just like setting up the opportunity to do almost like a practice project without the employer ahead of time. Sometimes simulations are used for this. So it kind of guides people, walks them through, but it helps build a little bit of confidence. Then you're going into the real world project with a real employer. You've kind of done that already. We're working on some partnerships to actually bring that to the forefront, so that could be very easy for schools to offer to their students. I love the model that you're describing of different students taking on different roles. One way to sort of, I've seen before, to help prepare them, again, this throws challenges in there, but it's to prepare them for ambiguity and change, is that halfway through the project, people switch roles. Everyone's got to go into the different role and now take a look at it from that perspective. And yes, that was disrupt the deliverables, and that's not necessarily the best way to get the best results, but in many ways, a different setup might actually lead to different results. But what's most important is the learning experience, having the students reflect on that and go, now that I'm in this new role, how does that change my ideas around the project, where this is going? My evaluation of my peers, and how I think, they might see me in my role in this project, et cetera. That can be an interesting way to kind of spark things and shift things. The thing that I think that we're the most excited about, because everyone's talking about it right now, is leveraging more AI in these projects, and actually, being really comfortable with that. I think this is something that we noticed so clearly when AI, and when ChatGPT first came out, and there was a lot of concern across higher education that ChatGPT was encouraging students to cheat or to
it's a big one,
AI in inappropriate ways, or just making some of the assignments just not offering the level of learning that they used to. We went and reached out to all of our professors and asked them about AI, and their concerns were, and it was the opposite. I mean, the folks who were doing experiential learning projects were thrilled what their students could do as part of the project. The shifts that we've seen, some of our faculty members, we have an entrepreneurship professor as an example, who they used to do a competitive landscape, look at different competitors, and then recommend, look at some different market segments and recommend which market segments to go after. That was a good, strong project as part of an entrepreneurship class matched with a startup. Cool. Now it's like, go do all of that, then do a pricing strategy, then do a marketing strategy, then run 3 pilots, and then evaluate how those pilots went, and then provide recommendations on how you do it differently next time. Just the amount that the students can accomplish in the same amount of time has skyrocketed. But the same fears that an educator might have of this, they're not using, this isn't their own work. That doesn't really work in this world, because you can't fake your way through a experiential project with AI. AI to listen to the employer for you, and with empathy and human judgment, and really understand the challenges that they're facing. And then, we can help and support the activity as part of the project, the research as part of the project, the categorizing things and analysis of different insights, and even creating a project plan, which helps students, to be more proactive, as we were talking about, and be more structured around this. But it's certainly not going to be able to make a gut decision on something that really factors in the kinds of things that only a human can get from interacting through that
Yeah.
relationship, where presentations are made, feedback is given,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a need to iterate on that. And that I think is so important. And it's, again, one of our core beliefs here at Riipen is that technology is really meant to humans at the center of everything. Whether that's
Mm-hmm.
us, an educator supporting the students, the humans there are more important than the technology, or it's the students themselves and the work that they're doing for the employers and the employer interaction. The human is at the center of everything. And so again, technology, AI is not meant to replace the human skills. It's really just meant to these durable skills are meant to amplify them.
Yeah, yeah, and that's it's also interesting because it's a different perspective than we hear from like the CEO of Duolingo or something, where it's like, what are we going to prioritize? And I really hear the humanness is what you're trying to preserve in this work.
Absolutely. I think there's just too much. We personally believe, we see it in our own work, there's too much that AI and technology can't replace that you need. But that doesn't mean that each individual can't accomplish 3, 5, 10x more.
Totally. Okay, I have something that you mentioned. I want to share another example in my one of my courses, and it's the same course that where they're engaging in experiential learning and they're doing community impact work. And I had a student, let's call her Marie, and Marie was researching mental health access for first gen students. She's a first gen student herself, and this topic was incredibly meaningful. She's personally connected, to it. And one day she was using ChatGPT to help her write outreach emails to community partners. And she told me it helps me sound more confident than I feel. And that line has stayed with me because we co-design our AI policy. I'm totally open with students and I working together and how we're going to use AI because I can see the lens of AI literacy. And I knew that she wasn't using ChatGPT to cut corners, using it to write the email itself. It was more about not feeling like her own voice, her own words were good enough. And then I take the positionality, I take her lens of being a first gen student and this already feeling like college, I'm not good enough for college. This world isn't for me. And I keep like I get wanting to use templates and scripts and learn the language, to then be able to apply it. But there's something that I can't shake, about this trusting yourself, trusting your instincts, and I don't know. Can you help me with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting question, but I guess I'm a huge advocate. Folks at Riipen know that I'm really pushing our team to think through how they leverage AI in their day-to-day work. And again, with this core belief that it's really meant to amplify human skills. And you've got to think very critically about it and with empathy. Am I becoming too reliant on this and not trusting my gut? But I think that, and this is my sense and how I speak to a lot of experts in this space around this or who know more than I do. And my own gut feeling on this, trusting my own gut feeling, is that it's really the iterating back and forth with AI that's so powerful. I actually do think there's an opportunity for, it does get watered down to some extent. We've all seen the perfect email that's come, sales email that's come to you that's completely tone deaf. But
Totally.
but there's something about the iteration of going back and forth. AI, for me, sometimes I literally feel like it almost takes me longer to working with AI than it would on my own because it's never good enough. You could always keep going deeper. You could always make more tweaks, and it's so quick to make it so you can explore so many different options, so many different ways of looking at this. And then I'm coming back to my own gut instinct around like what was the perfect mix out of all of those. That makes me feel really confident about what I'm putting forward, whether that's a proposal, whether that's an email, whether that's ideas for an op-ed. It's a really strong thought partner for me in that way. And I think that's what we're really trying to encourage with our students. But I think you're 100% right. How do we encourage that while also making sure that students are trusting their gut? They're trusting they're
Yeah.
have confidence in themselves. They are building their own voice. They are
Yeah.
critical thinkers, and they're not just relying on AI. I do think experiential learning offers the playground to be able to do that and practice it, and that should be really built into the student's reflection as part of experiential learning. It's a core component of experiential learning, especially if we assume that they are using AI as part of these projects.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the things you name. I'm just holding them all, and I'm learning so much from you of just thinking of little shifts that I can do in my courses. Even what you named of integrating that AI into performance reviews of, I do a lot with AI literacy, and I do reflection, but I don't think that I'm asking students at the end of the semester to really think about how did you use your AI tools and skills to help you and support you in your learning and your work. So I'm grateful for that.
I mean, I think, this, I don't want to oversimplify things, but
Yeah.
I think, the long-standing comment here is, you get what you measure. We wanted to really make sure that our team understood that this is something that we're measuring. It doesn't mean that, like, if you score lowly on that, you're a failure and you're getting fired. By no means whatsoever. I mean, this
Yeah.
is a learning opportunity, and how do we start to mark across other individuals and learn from their comments, what they're doing? How do we share that almost in our own, community of action, where we can learn from each other? And that was, we did something very similar. I told you earlier about embracing change. That's like, a very big theme here at Riipen. We really put that as part of our performance reviews as well. How are you? Well, I would say,
Whoa.
more of your self-reflection, and then part of the performance review is like, really, are you someone who is encouraging change? Are you thinking critically about the way you're doing
Wow.
things? Are you, are you supporting that kind of change, or are you resisting it? I mean, these are things
Yeah.
our folks are thinking about on a regular basis. And when change comes up, which creates discomfort, which in reality, I can totally, with our employees who feel that I just got the hang of it and I'm now excelling in my role, and
And it
now we're
shifts.
changing it
Yeah.
entirely.
Yeah.
Um, but as a leader of a company, I think that's one of the things that you need to be thinking about, is how are we evolve, of the world's rapidly evolving around us. How are we
Yeah.
evolving with it? And if you're, we always often say, if we're doing the same thing 6 months from now, we're just not evolving fast enough alongside the industry.
Totally. Okay. Thank you so much. I have a question that I ask everyone, and it's the closing question. And it's, what is one question you hope we are still asking in the future? About experiential learning, about education, about the role of AI, all of it. Just what's one question you're hoping we're still asking?
So I think I'll come back to what I've said several times throughout this. And I think the question that I think is going to be super important is, how, in the face of AI and rapid transformation, how do we maintain our humanity
Yes.
at the center of our learning and work? How do we leverage technology and embrace technology and embrace, change, but to amplify the human skills and what makes us uniquely human, rather than replacing it?
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. And thank you for that question that I want to be, I'm going to have to think even deeper, about and think through. So I'm really grateful for this time with you, Dana.
Thank you. This has been fantastic. I hope we get another chance to continue chatting about this, and just love the
Yeah.
work you're doing. It's fascinating. It's so meaningful. It's so important.